Of course, the big difference is Caitlin Clark. I think she should be up for MVP. Rookie of the Year, foregone conclusion. But I think MVP, and for everybody who talked about, she's just a shooter. She's already set the all-time rookie assist record. For somebody who's the greatest scorer in college basketball history.
Let's break down the recent showdown between the Indiana Fever and the Las Vegas Aces. What was supposed to be an MVP battle, but ended up being a rough outing for the Fever.
The reason they were so bad early was because they were playing 3 games in 4 nights, back-to-backs all the time. Their schedule was front-loaded with all the best teams in basketball.
This game had it all. A record-breaking moment from A'ja Wilson, struggles from Caitlin Clark, some questionable coaching decisions, and a lot of frustration with the officiating. So, let's get into it. Before we dive in, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel so we can bring more basketball content to viewers like you. Ready to see how this is all going down? Let's go.
Caitlin Clark is starting to push A'ja Wilson for MVP of this league, and I am not exaggerating. She is starting to push A'ja as the best player in the league because I don't see anybody control a game the way Caitlin can.
For Indiana Fever fans, the Las Vegas Aces continue to be that one team they just can't seem to get past. It's like no matter what Indiana throws at them, the Aces are always one step ahead. This latest game marked yet another victory for the Aces over the Fever, and it's starting to feel like an uphill battle for Indiana whenever these two teams meet.
Caitlin Clark is a superstar. Not a female superstar, she is a superstar.
We were coming to see Caitlin Clark play.
She moves the needle. The WNBA has been looking for someone who moves the needle.
Before we dive into the game's struggles, we have to shout out A'ja Wilson for an incredible milestone. She became the all-time leading scorer in WNBA history for points in a single season. That's huge. The moment came when Wilson knocked down a mid-range shot with Aaliyah Boston trying to defend her.
Just earlier this season, she's working on it.
Wilson's been deadly in the mid-range here tonight.
It's these kinds of moments that remind us why Wilson has been a monster this year. Her ability to find her sweet spot and hit those clutch shots is what separates her from the rest. But let's keep in mind, it wasn't a perfect night for her as well, hitting 11 out of 28 shots.
Who we thought they were until they get to the playoffs. Like, there's so many other storylines heading into the playoffs now that are pretty interesting with what we are going to see or not see from them.
She's having impact on her team that nobody else in the league is having on her team. This is a team that went 13-27 last year, and suddenly the Indiana Fever are the hottest team by far in the league.
But while Wilson was busy breaking records, Caitlin Clark was having one of her toughest games this season. Coming into this matchup, she had been absolutely on fire since the Olympic break. But this game, not so much. She went just 1 for 10 from beyond the arc, which is way below what we've come to expect from her.
They made every minute of her night an absolute nightmare. They were all over her. There was no way, and for her to get her shot, she's trying to come off of screens that either weren't working or they had 2 people marking her, it seemed like.
It seemed like Clark just couldn't find her rhythm in this game, and it showed in the final score. The Fever rely heavily on her to lead the offense, and when she's not hitting shots, the whole team feels it.
And so she missed damn near every 3 she took.
She felt gassed out because of all the minutes she's been playing lately. Don't get me wrong, she still put up some important points in the fourth quarter, but the lack of three-point shooting really hurt the Fever's chances.
And whether we think that the Aces are as dominant as they were in the past or not, they are still the defending 2-time champs. That is a great measuring stick game. That is a great confidence booster.
If you've made it this far and are enjoying the video, don't forget to like and subscribe. We know watching this video takes some of your time, and we appreciate you. Now back to the action.
Some of her passes look just, they were just as crisp, innovative. I didn't see that on the floor. She did type of passes.
Let's talk about the rotation choices by Fever coach Christy Sides. Now, I know Sides was likely thinking about building confidence and giving some players more experience as they prepare for the playoffs, but some of these decisions were head-scratchers.
Okay, and here's where the shocking part was. This one got me. Okay, you got Caitlin Clark, you got Wallace, and you got Samuelson on the court at the same.
For instance, Christy Wallace, who had been out for a while, got some playing time. She did a great job defensively, but offensively, she just missed open looks. Katie Lou Samuelson also saw some minutes but didn't contribute much, which was disappointing, especially with her struggles on defense.
But Christy Sides' mentality and connection with the team is really struggling.
Sides might have been experimenting with these rotations to see what works heading into the playoffs, but it was clear that these moves didn't exactly help in this game. You could tell the Fever were trying to figure out who could step up if someone like Lexi Hull finds herself in foul trouble during the playoffs. Unfortunately, those experiments didn't pay off this time.
The offensive fouls are definitely surprising at times. I feel like I do get held and get quite a bit of contact throughout the games, and then you get hit with some of those when you take some contact.
Speaking of foul trouble, we need to talk about the officiating in this game. The Fever have every right to be frustrated with the way the calls have been going lately, especially against the Aces. Aaliyah Boston found herself in foul trouble once again, and some of those calls were, let's just say, questionable at best. There was one play in particular where Wilson was trying to establish position, spun around, and boom, Boston got called for the foul even though there didn't seem to be any contact.
I don't know, apparently they see something different, and then we have to use our challenge to try to not let AB have a fifth foul in the third quarter that basically takes her out of the game. We lose a challenge, we lose a timeout. So that's tough as well.
Those kinds of calls disrupt the Fever's flow and put their key players on the bench when they're needed the most. Even Becky Hammond, the coach of the Aces, was fired up on the sidelines, reacting to some of the calls during the game. It's clear that the referees were a major factor in how things played out on the court. After the game, Caitlin Clark didn't hold back. She expressed her frustration with how physical the game was and how some of the fouls were being called. Honestly, Chelsea Gray barely guarded me, just a few times. Jackie Young was usually the one defending me, or sometimes Kayla Colson would step in. They're all really tough and physical defenders. I was surprised by some of the offensive fouls called, Clark said.
They're going to be physical. They're going to do it again. It worked. But that's what I should expect at this point. That's kind of what every team does. I think I can use my quickness a little bit better, absorb a little more contact, set up cuts a little bit better. I thought overall I got a little bit tired and wasn't moving as fast tonight, so definitely will be a focus point on Friday.
She even admitted that it felt like she was getting hit a lot, and when she tried to respond, she was the one who got called for the foul. It's clearly starting to frustrate her, and she mentioned that the Fever even had to use their challenge to keep Boston from getting her fifth foul, which would have taken her out of the game. Losing the challenge also meant losing a timeout, which is a tough hit during a game like this. Clark knows the physical play is part of the game, but it seems like she's not getting the kind of superstar treatment where she would often get those calls in her favor. As we head into the playoffs, that's something to watch for.
Like I said, I'm proud of our group. Like we battled. Like we really did. Like we got some stops on defense. We were pretty resilient in that regard. I thought we rebounded really well as well.
Despite the loss to the Aces, it's not all bad news for the Fever. They've already secured a playoff spot, which is more than anyone expected at the beginning of the season. With Caitlin Clark leading the way, along with Aaliyah Boston and Kelsey Mitchell, they've got the pieces to make a serious run. But they need everyone firing on all cylinders.
Who is the most dangerous team that you think no one in that top half wants to see right now? In the bottom half, I think that Indiana is a problem.
The Fever are likely going to land in the 6th spot for the playoffs, but they've got some work to do if they want to go deep. Clark, Boston, and Mitchell will need to consistently play at an all-star level, and the team needs to figure out their rotation issues if they're going to stand a chance against top teams like the Aces.
She knows how to lay it out on a dime. Her court vision is impeccable, and now her teammates are ready to catch the ball. They trust she's going to get it where it needs to be. But y'all, the favorite part of my game from Caitlin Clark is this behind the back pass. Come on now. I love it. I love it. And that wasn't just one time. She does that on a frequent and drops it right there. Perfect to Aaliyah Boston.
So let me just sprinkle in, because you mentioned AB. 2 of those highlights, I believe, were a Clark-Boston connection. Those 2 have been the 2nd best scoring duo in the league behind Asia Wilson and Jackie.
The good news is the Fever get another shot at the Aces this Friday. They'll have a chance to make some adjustments and figure out how to close out on three-point shooters better. The defensive effort wasn't terrible in this game, but there were definitely moments where the Fever struggled to contest shots from deep. If they can tighten up their defense and find a way to get Caitlin Clark going from 3, there's a good chance they could pull off the upset. But if Clark has another off night and the rotation continues to be an issue, it might be another long game for Indiana. So while this game didn't go the way the Fever hoped, they're still in a good position heading into the playoffs. They've got one of the most exciting young stars in Caitlin Clark, and if they can get her firing on all cylinders again, this team could surprise a lot of people. The Aces may have won this round, But the Fever aren't out of it yet. Let's see what happens on Friday when these two teams face off again. Can Clark and the Fever bounce back and get the win? Let us know what you think in the comments. Like and subscribe so you never miss out on the latest news. Click the video on the screen, and we will see you in the next one.